This is where you find a lot of the deep information when you start getting into mystery schools and esoteric circles and occult circles. You start to find out what a lot of things mean. So I want to thank you guys for your support. Some of you guys have, purchased every single DVD and or downloaded every single video and supported in different ways. I really appreciate you guys' support and people being really interested in the series and really appreciate what I do as far as putting out information. As I said before, I'll be back on YouTube, have a lot more videos out, and really get that going. I can express my concerns in the video that's up now on YouTube about what's going on and everything like that. So I hope a lot of people understand what we're going through as people who put up content, and not just that, people who put out the truth, because we are the ones who's going to be attacked the most. And again, there's certain lanes that you have to be careful not to take, and certain things that you have to do. You got to be careful about how you move and doing things like putting out truth. And a lot of people don't think about stuff until it's too late. A lot of people don't realize that something that a person is doing is really dangerous until it's too late and they're gone. And there's really nothing you can do, no matter how mad or how upset you get. It is what it is. You look back and say, okay, well, he wasn't doing something that, was considered completely safe. So again, it's not something I take lightly. And there has been people that have been putting out, content for years, that's still here. So I'm not trying to make it all like it's, big dangerous thing that we're doing. I'm just saying, now they understand how important YouTube and its knowledge is, because a lot of people are waking up and hindering their plans. And as I said in the video, it's not going to last long. So I really appreciate the support and people who really understand what we're trying to do, what I'm trying to do, and support. So, thank you guys again. But, a lot of people at this point in knowledge, been keeping up with all the videos and everything. At this point in knowledge and teaching, you should have many questions. And one of the questions I get the most regarding the mystery school is building. Building is the biggest thing, because when you look at the fact that most of the secrets, the important things, the crazy things we see from the ancient Egyptians come within their structures and their buildings. We look at monuments, we look at things and say, how the hell did they do that? And when all the geologists and all of, the builders and architects and everybody come together, they are baffled by the precision and the scale and the, the math, the geometry that's put into these structures. So what is that all about? And, it just so happened to be one of the biggest secrets of the mystery school. And digging into this information, we'll really get a better understanding on how the ancient Egyptians felt about the body, how these esoteric circles feel about the body. We'll dig deeper into another esoteric aspect of the Adam and Eve story. There are many. And, as I said, we'll continue to go back to the garden. So much happened there. A lot of people are unaware of and have really no clue. Or, there's another aspect of thinking when you start doing in the Garden of Eden. So we're going to go back in there and take a look as well. And, you really got to think about the structures that we see. And if you know a little bit of geometry and math, if you understand anything about building, on first glance at a lot of these structures, and you think about how long ago this was, which is, the big thing about the Egyptians, you just ask yourself how. Me just now coming back from Kemet, the first time I was there, I was stupid. I knew nothing. And it's embarrassing almost. My thoughts then was they somehow did this. Because I just didn't understand the sheer weight. And the fact that at that time, we didn't have a crane that can do what they did. So, how the hell? I just didn't understand. It was just, I got talked into it, took the trip, and was ignorant the whole time. And it did change my life as far as going down to, to Karnak and going down to Abu Simbel and seeing the Ramses statues and everything like that, and seeing how Abu Simbel is everything Ramses. And when you go from the south of Kemet up to the north, all along, everywhere you go, you find traces of Ramses. he really was a big deal in Kemet. And that's what really kind of sparked my interest with the Bible, as far as the Bible definitely lied about Ramses. So, and going there and seeing so many of the, magnificent structures, and going into the pyramids, standing on the pyramids and looking at everything, and then understanding the geometry and math and everything that surrounds the mystery of these structures. We really got to dig into it and understand what is that really speaking to. So let's go to the Temple of Man, the great Karnak temple at Luxor. This is one of many temples that have a lot of hidden occult esoteric meanings. And as a lot of people know, they basically hid the human body, from infancy up to, adulthood inside the temple. When you go into different chambers, you have, skulls in different chambers, skull sizes from, a newborn up to like a 19-year-old, and the different chambers, the covered chambers, you have the newborn skull shape in the temple of Karnak. So, they really designed this temple to show man. And it's really well hidden. If you're a person without, deep esoteric knowledge, occult knowledge, things only taught in the mystery schools, you wouldn't pick up on this stuff. It's not even subtle. The stuff is very well hidden to the point where, when you're walking through it, it's just no way you're going to know what it is. You're just going to look at it and see the pillars and see everything that's there, and it's designed for you to just kind of sort of get lost and be standing in awe of the pillars and all the hieroglyphics and what have you. But hidden well within the structure is very many esoteric symbols and Egyptian hieroglyphics that mark the body. So as you walking up towards the Temple of Karnak and the south wall, you'll see right there on the wall, there are chariots, and you have archers on these chariots. And when you look at the placement of the archers on the chariot, right where the wall is, it symbolizes the bottom of the foot. So you have archers symbolizing the arch of the foot. So when you look at that, upon first inspection, I got to zoom in a little bit, it's tough to see, worn down with age. But when you look at it, it's something that you'll just look at and say, oh, well, and you'll keep moving. And as you go through the great Karnak temple, you'll find in different rooms, different chambers, things on the wall that lead to, the understanding of the human body. For instance, you go to the west wall and you have 13 horses, fully, harnessed horses. And it's representing the spine. That's where the spine would be if you look at it as far as the body. And you have, the 13 horses representing the 13 vertebrae, in the spine. So it's things like this that you find as you keep going through the temple, and you'll start to begin to understand, if you have esoteric knowledge, what it is. So when you get to, of course, the brain, where there's a lot going on, you see the same type of things happening there. So now when you start to make your way towards the head, you have chamber 1 or room 1, which would be where the pineal gland is. They call it the secret chamber. Now you look over to room 4. Room 4 is where the eye would be. But also what's interesting about room 4, when you start to look along the walls, you see the twisted flag symbol, or the flag symbol, which sort of looks like this. Now, what's interesting about the flag symbol is the flag symbol, one, the Egyptians used to make cloth, clothes out of. But when you look at that symbol, it looks exactly like the olfactory bulb, which is the prefrontal nerve or prefrontal vertebrae that deals with our sense of smell. When you look at it, you see how it splits. Now, when you look at it in relation to the temple, the head, you see it matches up right where room 4 is. Now, the interesting thing about that, when you look right before that, it's right where Wajet will be on the uraeus. You look in front of it, you see the serpent, or Wajet on the uraeus would be right there. Now, the interesting thing about that is that snakes have the olfactory bulb. They have an olfactory system just like us that deals with smell. And another interesting thing is when you look at the symbol for the flax or the twisted flax, it looks exactly like a snake's tongue, which they use their tongue to smell. So this is one of the more interesting things that we see that they put in there. And they put very intricate, detailed things in symbols. They left symbols that if you do not understand the body deeply, you would never make that connection. So the simple fact that they put the twisted flat symbol there in the same room, in room 4, where it would be, prefrontal, on the prefrontal lobe, the prefrontal brain, is amazing. And that it matches up with Wajet, and that deals with the serpent. I mean, all of that is unbelievable. And this is like one of the things you have to look for when you start looking at a lot of these temples, and understanding that even the most smallest symbol could correspond to something that you have absolutely no idea that exists within the body. Me personally, when I was reading R.A. Swallow Lubbock's book, The Temple of Man, when he was talking about this, I heard about it. I already knew about the Karnak temple, of course, but I did not know they went that deeply into detail as far as, symbolizing veins and vertebrae or what have you, in the body. And, these are obviously important things that we have and that we use. But the simple fact of how they mashed it to, connect with the serpent is just amazing. And it just goes to show, how much they thought about the serpent, of course, which we see throughout Kemet. But when you start going through the temple, you start finding a lot of these things. And it's basically exactly, what they're trying to tell you, how it was laid out. When you look at how it would have looked completed, it would have been an amazing temple, beautiful. And, even the ruins is still beautiful. It's nice. When you go in there, it's amazing. But it's not just in this temple in Karnak, but throughout the temples of Egypt, we find a lot of hidden symbolism that they understand in the mystery schools. So now, as I said before, everything they talk about in esoteric circles, the mysteries of the ancient Egyptians deals with consciousness, energy, matter, plain and simple. Everything in the mystery schools, everything they're talking about is going to take you back to consciousness, energy, matter. Why? Because it's consciousness, energy, and matter that brought everything that we see and can't see into existence. Plain and simple. So the temple at Karnak is dealing with the intricate details of the body, as well as other temples around ancient Kemet. It might be dealing with a foot, a head, the heart, an arm. You never know. You have to really understand. And if you understand the body, you'll get that. It's a major thing how much they knew. They completely understood every single working part of the body, every organ, every vein, every vessel. The Egyptians, they knew it all. They knew the functions. They knew how it would affect you. It's amazing that they knew this. So you have to understand, one, the body is the key to your salvation. The body. You go to church, they give you the body of Christ, body of Christ, the body of Christ. You eat the body of Christ, symbolically saying that the body is the key to salvation. The body of Christ is the key to salvation. And it's exactly what they tell you. But guess what? As I explained before, you are Christ. Christ is you. So it's saying your body is the key to salvation. Why? Because it's your body that you have to use to activate your masculine, feminine, kundalini energy, to activate the third eye so you can expand in consciousness and energy. It's just that simple. It's what they understood. So we see in the Bible all the time, the body is the temple. The body is the temple. And I just showed you the temple is the body in Karnak. So it's telling you the exact same thing so we can understand where they got that from. So now when we look at 1 Corinthians 6:19-20, it says, "Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost, which is in you? Therefore, glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's." Plain and simple. 1 Corinthians 3:16 says, "Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you?" Luke 11:52 says, "Woe to you lawyers, for ye have taken away the key of knowledge. Ye entered not in yourselves, and them that were entering in ye hindered." Says the key of knowledge basically is going within yourself. Acts 7:48 says, "The Most High dwelleth not in temples made with hands." Just giving you the hint right there. Even though you see this stuff, if you do figure it out, it's not in the building, of course, but just giving you the hint and alluding to the actual building itself. We say, churches are temples, the temple of God, talking about a structure, and it's clearly talking about the body. It's not a coincidence that a temple, this is called a temple, and it's not a coincidence, but it's talking about the same stuff. So now it says here, 1 Kings 6, 7, and 8, and the house, when it was in building, was built of stone, made ready before it was brought thither, so that there was neither hammer, nor axe, nor any tool of iron heard in the house while it was in building. Think about that. So it's giving you a clue right there. How are you building your body? Besides eating right, exercising, and all that, meditation, it's silence. You're meditating. You're building the temple, which is talking about building your body. You don't hear no hammers or tools or anything like that when you're building your body. So it's trying to give you the reference that it's talking about building, your body. Verse 8 says, the door for the middle chamber was in the right side of the house. And they went up with winding stairs into the middle chamber and out of the middle into the third. Into the third what? Clearly talking about the third eye. So it's giving you the clue right there, right in 1 Kings, and it's weird, not a coincidence that it's in 1 Kings, as I'll talk about later. 1 Kings, because the king wears the crown. The crown goes on your head. And the head is what it's talking about, the brain. It's talking about the pineal gland. It's talking about the body where all this stuff is taking place. So you find throughout the body, just like in ancient Kemet, which is giving you all these details about the body being the vehicle that's going to basically help you grow and ascend in higher consciousness and energy. You see what the Bible basically did as far as taking exactly what we see in Kemet and then putting it in the Bible in different metaphorical ways, but really expressing exactly what he's talking about in Kemet, building the body, which is the temple, so that you can get God, you can become God, so you can grow. Talking about growing energy and consciousness. So this is what it's alluding to. This is what it's talking about. And when you begin to read the Bible and understand, as well as understand what's going on in Kemet, you start to make those connections. When a lot of people ask me, what book shall I read? I always tell people, you need to understand the Bible first. Because if you have this knowledge about the Bible, you start knowing these verses. I'm telling you, when you go into ancient Kemet, it's going to reveal itself. Everything is going to start breaking down. You're going to start understanding what these verses mean. And it's going to help you make these corresponding connections to things that's going to help you understand a lot of the deeper esoteric meanings about ancient Kemet. So we're talking about building. We're talking about building structures, building. So think of Freemasonry. Now understand, stone masonry is an actual profession. It's an actual skill. So the Freemasons took, stone masonry. They took masonry and made a secret society out of it. Why? Now the obvious answer is because one, the ancient Egyptians basically used building to hide their secrets. They hid the secrets of the universe. They hid the secrets of the body, the secrets of math and geometry within their structure. So it's only right to take the profession or the skill that you use to build. So, Masons have to really know math. They have to be smart. They have to know geometry. The god of Freemasonry would be the grand architect. The architect is the one who plans it all out and has it done. So the architect would be consciousness itself when you understand what it's metaphorically speaking about. So now the ancient Egyptians really understood this. They understood how important it was to show basically exactly where they came from. So they built these structures. These structures basically reflect what they seen in the universe, what they seen in the heavens or space. So they built these structures to reflect this. They built these structures to reflect celestial bodies because they understood, it came from space. So, as they say, as above, so below. And it's exactly what they did. So they built these structures to reflect celestial bodies. And they built these structures to reflect our bodies because our bodies as well come from space, come from the universe. And they understood this. So this is why they did this. So you have to understand, one, that masonry requires an advanced knowledge in math and geometry, plain and simple. So the Egyptians seemingly hid a lot of math and geometry within their structures. It's just things that when you start to figure out the measurements of these stones and the position and how they did it, and understand how hard it would be to get it to the level of detail that they did, to get it to the point that they did. It's amazing. That's what everybody's so in shock and awe about, as far as the ancient Egyptians and how they built, because the math behind it is mind blowing when you understand about geometry and how it would be so tough to get things to this point. But this is what they did. So in building these structures, they built these structures to reflect, as I said, the celestial bodies. So it's clear they wanted to show math and geometry, because math and geometry in building goes back to the beginning of the physical existence of the universe. It's just that simple. It goes back to the beginning. It goes back to how we got here in the first place, how physical existence was created. Now, I talked about this a little in the Metaphysics DVD. You have to understand, one, with consciousness creating energy, creating matter, consciousness moved and created the energy. Energy created the elements necessary to create matter itself. We are matter, plain and simple. We are made up of atoms. We are made up of these elements. We're made up of these materials. So in building with those steps, you are reflecting the beginning of physical existence itself. So you got to understand, one, if you have a big empty space that's infinite, there is nothing there, nothing but infinite space. So you don't have anything to move in relation to, because there's infinite space. There's nothing material to create any kind of ratio or distance or what have you in that empty space. So as soon as the first physical thing or material thing is created, you have math, you have geometry, because now you can calculate distance. You can basically calculate the distance from that object to a certain point in space. So once you have two objects, more math is created. The more objects you have, the more math exists. So as I said before in the Metaphysics DVD, we didn't create math. We simply discovered that it already existed, long before us. Plain and simple. It's something that's really mind-boggling when you think about it. So this is what they knew. So we are so shocked about the math that the ancient Egyptians understood when they were just doing what they supposed to do. They were just making things as they seen in the heavens, that is done precisely, that is done in relation to math and science. So when you have this energy that's creating these elements and creating material, and you understand that this is where we came from, they were reflecting exactly what they understood in the cosmos here on Earth, because they understood this is how physical existence came to be. There's a lot more deeper meanings into all this, which we'll get into later, of course. Now, I got into a little debate about what I talked about in Saturn Satan Part 1 as far as time being a construct. Now, when you start thinking about, empty space and material and then math coming into existence, a lot of people would think that, okay, well, once you have movement, once movement is created, you have time. And this was the argument. So if you have, point A, point B being created in existence, and you have a moving object, now you have to calculate how long it takes from the object to get from point A to point B. And in doing so, you have time, because you're calculating time. Now, it sounds all well and good, but you have to ask yourself a simple question. Why? Why would you want to know how long it takes to get from point A to point B? For what? So in that thinking, you begin to understand that, well, wait a minute, time is a construct. Time is a construct that is put forward by a person with an agenda. Plain and simple. So for instance, if I was to say, how long it's going to take for you to, finish eating, common sense will, you will ask, for what? Why you want to know that? What is the reason why you want to know how long it's going to take for me to finish eating? Do you want to go somewhere? You want to use this fork? What is it? You want me to do something? There has to be a why. There has to be a reason why you want to understand about time. Again, the Matrix. When you break it down, what the Merovingian was talking about is time. If you never have time, you can never take time. He was giving it to you right there. A lot of people would never put that together, but he was going deeply into time itself. And people, who understand about this stuff will get it. But time is a construct. Time is something that is created. Now, if you have a party to go to, somebody tell you, hey, be at the party at this time. Now you're on their time. Now you have to really balance your day around their time. They control you now, whether you realize it or not. You can't do this because you have a time. You have an appointment to keep. So you have to think about that. Time is a construct. Time is not something that is natural. If you are infinite energy, you do not have to deal with time. So when you think about one, if you wanted to know when the sun was going to rise, you wanted to know. So you sat there and you watched the sun, and you would have to come up with a time, with a schedule to calculate the sun, the movement of the sun. You will have to come up with time to pinpoint where the sun would be. Now, whether or not you do that, guess what? The sun is still going to rise. Plain and simple. The sun is not on your time. Whatever you say to it, it's going to do what it's going to do. It's going to move. It's going to rise. So you can't, instill time on something that has an infinite movement, that has a movement that's already going to happen. Time is going to be constructed to hinder your movement. So now, if you're on a time schedule, you can't do certain things. You are limited because of time. So you have to understand, yes, and it's something that a lot of people understand, you think about, but time is not something that is naturally created. So when you hear people talking about, time, the speed of light will be the speed of light, regardless of time. You have to think about it. It's deep and it messes with your head a little bit, but you got to really think about that. It's a construct. It's something that is created, something that's put out there, something that is given to us for us to really, have to deal with. It's a construct given to us. So, in looking at the universe and looking at a building based off of, material and how everything came together based off, consciousness creating energy and everything like that, time does not fall into all of that. So as I said, if something has infinite movement, time is not going to stop it. The only way you can really stop something that has infinite movement is if you somehow slow it down, if you somehow hinder its movement. And you have to think about it automatically. If you're hindering something that's moving at a speed and you somehow hinder it, then you slow it down. You slow down its speed, therefore creating time. And this is basically what happened. Our vibration has been slowed down. It has been slowed down. So now we are feeling the effects of time. We are feeling the effects because normal vibration, the normal way we would vibrate, has been slowed down, and it has side effects to it, which would be age. So this is basically what they created. So we would go from being an infinite something to, feeling this effect of time, something slowing down the normal process of an infinite movement, if you can, process that. So again, if you somehow slow down the sun, there will be consequences. Plain and simple. So you got to really think about that and think about how, and as I talked about before, we're going to get into this down the line because vibration is just a huge thing, and there's so much to really dig into before we start getting into that, but we will. But you have to think about it. Again, if you have something that's just going to constantly go and you somehow slow it down, it's going to be consequences, it's going to be repercussions, and it's something that we're dealing with. But we understand, as I said before, infinite energy, it should not have any effect on us, but it does on us in this physical state. So they affected physical, reality, time, or what have you, and we are dealing with the side effects of that. So as I talked about before, and as I talk about a little bit later about the negative ions that the pyramids created, and for a reason, but we don't understand the state of the physical body in the beginning. Of course, had to be different from now. So this is stuff we'll get into down the line. But again, time is a construct. It doesn't fit into the whole parameters of creation as far as consciousness, energy, matter. So now one of the cool things about building, and the goal of building is what? Completion. Plain and simple. So no matter what kind of deadline or schedule you give the builders, the building is not going to get done until it's done. The purpose of the building is the completion of the building and the function of the building. So the building cannot be completed or function correctly until it's done. So no matter what kind of deadline or schedule or time you put on its completion, it's done when it's done. It's just that simple. So stonemasons, they have a space in which to do their building. They have a blank space. It starts out with, sometimes not blank, but most of the time you have a space. And you have to understand math and geometry and ratios and everything like that, distance, scale, or what have you, to know how to use the materials required to get the building done, to get the building completed. And it's just the same thing. It's the same exact thing. You have the empty universe and building. Everything requires math for stuff to get done, which is why math is important, which is why they talk about, sacred geometry and all that. So time really, it has no effect on building something that has to take the time, whatever time is needed to get built. So no matter what, as I said, no matter what schedule you put on it, it's going to take however long it takes. That's one of the beauties in building that they understood. When you understand about, ratios, and you understand that, a lot of material things, a lot of things in nature that we see have the same angles, have the same curves and shapes. So it's only right that we find, Fibonacci sequence and pi and the golden ratio and everything like that in so many different things in nature, because, it all deals with the calculation of, matter, material, distance, ratio, everything that's in this certain space, everything that's made a certain way. We all come from the same universe. Everything comes from the same type of creation, consciousness, energy, matter. Everything is made of the same thing. So it's only right that we find these same ratios, the same math and everything. It's not as if we are made from different things or made, don't want to say a different way, but sort of differently. It's the same thing. I mean, you got to really think about this. The same exact stuff. You may have a little bit more of this element or less of that element or this element. And that's why you have the kind of composition that you have. That's all it is. But when you trace it back to source, it's the same source. And if you understand that, then you can hide things about, nature, the body, universe, stars, what have you, in buildings, in structures. And it's exactly what the ancient Egyptians did. All they did was basically tell you what it is, what's going on. And it's hidden for a reason, it's there for a reason, which, we'll get in down the line. And all this stuff is done for a reason. And you got to really think about, again, how they had this information, how they knew about this stuff. And of course, the Masons hide this stuff, they hide this information because, one, of religion. If you started to understand this math, which is why they never taught it in school, it changes the whole control system, because it just leads to so many different questions. If you found out in school that, Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio, the spiral and everything like that is found in nature and so many different things, why? It just leads to so many different things that's basically going to lead to the whole house of cards coming crashing down. So now, the body is the temple. The body is the temple. You go to church or you go to the temple to basically get to God. To tell you, in order for you to go to heaven, you need to go to the temple, you need to go to church, you need to understand about God, learn about God, build your relationship with God. That's how you're going to get to God. Going to the temple, going to church. And you understand now that the body is the temple. The body is the church. So you have to build your body to get to God. Build your body to get to God. Whereas God will be in the brain. as I read to you from these Bible verses, they're trying to tell you, seeing God face to face. Genesis 30, Jacob called the name of the place Peniel. Seeing God face to face, his life is preserved. So it's telling you God sits in the brain. So it's talking about the pineal gland. It's talking about masculine and feminine kundalini energy to help activate that third eye, to help open that pineal gland, to help grow your consciousness and energy. So again, the Egyptians built the temple representing the body, but they also built the mind, the brain, representing the energy or God, where everything is going to happen at, upon your death.